Greetings and salutations, y'all. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z Attorney, and we got huge news today. The former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by the Department of Justice. I've got the indictment pulled up here. I want to go through it with you all, as well as go through the statutes that are referenced within it as the two crimes that he's alleged to have committed. So yeah, this is huge news. Let's go through this first, and we'll talk about afterwards what it really means. So, United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. So we're talking about federal court here. Curious that we're in the Eastern District of Virginia and not the D.C. court, since, presumably lying to Congress is one of the charges here that happened in D.C. So it would seem that would be where this suit would be brought, but it was brought in the Eastern District of Virginia, so I'm kind of curious to see why that is the case. United States of America versus James B. Comey Jr. Criminal numbers are case number 25 is for the year, CR criminal case 272. Count 1, false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government, aka lying to Congress, perjury to Congress. And count 2, obstruction of a congressional proceeding. So, indictment. All right, quick procedural note here. The indictment, all this means is that the charges were presented to a grand jury, and the grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, meaning they found probable cause to exist to say that there is evidence to suggest that James Comey, the defendant, did commit this crime. Probable cause, it is a lower standard than beyond a reasonable doubt, so just want everyone to keep that in mind. It is a lower standard, and there were 3 charges that were actually presented to this grand jury. Only 2 were returned as true bill for indictment. So, curious what that third charge is. Maybe we'll find out in the coming days. But yeah, there's our 2 charges, lying to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. So count 1, false statements within jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the U.S. government. On or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey, did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. Senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James B. Comey, had not, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning Person 1. Person 1, I have to assume, is Trump here, because we're talking about the investigation, the whole Russiagate investigation, Russian collusion investigation. But I may be wrong about who Person 1 is, so I'll just not comment on who I think that is. But here, yeah, they have the exact quote that he said, quote, authorize someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports. So there's gonna be video of this. This happened during a hearing, so we'll be able to go back and look at it and see the exact quote, the context of the quote, and then more importantly, what are the facts to show that this was a false statement, and most importantly actually, that James Comey knew what he was saying was a false statement. What information did he have presently at that time to then give him this knowledge base to make him saying this statement a knowingly materially false statement. Statement was false because, as James Comey then and there knew, he in fact had authorized Person 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning Person 1. So right here, they're claiming they've got the goods here. They've got evidence to say that the FBI Director, James Comey, knew he had authorized Person 3. We'll have to see who this person is. But he had authorized Person 3 to serve as an anonymous source. So to see that shows me, there's either got to be an email or a text or something showing that James Comey did communicate to this Person 3, and did give them authorization to be an anonymous source in news reporting. So seems like it's a pretty simple thing to prove. The fact that the grand jury returned the indictment shows me that they do have something like an email or a text message that would show that. Maybe they just have the testimony of Person 3 saying, yeah, I was authorized to do this, and we don't have a record of it, but James Comey told me to my face. If that's the case, yeah, it's going to get a lot harder to prove that exactly. But yeah, an email or a text message would be the smoking gun, the silver bullet to prove that he in fact lied when he said he had not authorized anyone to be an anonymous source in the news report. So all this in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001A2. So 18 U.S.C., that's the Federal Criminal Code, Section 1001A2. So let's look at that. Statements or entries generally, except as otherwise provided in this section, whoever in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the government of the United States knowingly and willfully, it is A2, knowingly and willfully makes any material makes any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation. So this is the criminal statute. Within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch, that's what we're talking about, a congressional hearing. They had subpoenaed him to testify. He was testifying under oath to Congress, and he made this materially false statement, false or fictitious or fraudulent. By making that statement, he's violated this criminal statute. You can scroll down to the bottom to usually see the sentencing. Actually, no, it's right here. So anyone who knowingly and willfully makes a materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 5 years. So it's a 5-year maximum punishment. But it can go up to 8 years if it involves terrorism, but that's not what's going on here. So 5-year maximum. That's the maximum punishment he's looking at for this first count for lying to Congress. Count 2, obstruction of a congressional proceeding. On or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James B. Comey, did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. So basically, it's kind of one and the same with the first charge, saying that he lied to Congress. That's count 1. And because he lied, it obstructed a congressional proceeding. That's count 2. So the lie, it's one fact, one thing that happened, this apparent lie, this alleged lie that he knew was a lie at the time. And by making this lie, he's guilty of 2 crimes. At least that is the charge. Violation of 18 U.S.C. 1505. Obstruction of proceedings before departments, agencies, and committees. Whoever, with intent to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance, in whole or in part, with any civil investigative demand duly and properly made under the Antitrust Civil Process Act, willfully withholds, misrepresents, removes from any place, conceals, covers up, destroys, mutilates, alters, or by other means falsifies any documentary material, answers to written interrogatories or oral testimony, there's where we're at, which is subject of such demand or attempts to do so or solicits another to do so, or whoever corruptly or by threats of force or by any threatening letter or communication influences. I don't think that's what we're doing here. It's talking about obstructing somebody else, influencing somebody else improperly. So, yeah, focused up here, whoever with intent to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance. So that's the question. Was the lie intended to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance with the question that the senator asked that he was under oath and obligated to answer truthfully? So once again, shall be fined, imprisoned not more than 5 years, so also a 5-year maximum charge. So both charges carry 5-year max. Honestly, my guess, probably not getting anywhere near the max for sure. Whether he gets any jail time at all, honestly, that's going to be the big question I'm looking at here. And yeah, once again, assuming right, the goods are there, that the statement was, first off, it was made in the way they said it was, which I'm assuming it is. I don't see how they could directly quote a statement on a date during a congressional hearing. You've got the exact date quoted, and you've got the statement verbatim. So I'm going to assume that's, all there. That's legit. That's valid. The main question is going to be, did he know it was a lie at the time? So once again, the silver bullet I'm looking for is going to be text message, email, some sort of written communication where he did provide this authorization to this person 3 to be an anonymous source in the news. That'd be the strongest evidence. It would not be as strong if it was just person 3 who was willing to testify to say, yes, he did authorize me, and there's no written record. Certainly, it still could be possible if there's any sort of independent witnesses corroborating the statement that he made to person 3, authorizing them to be an anonymous news source. That's all stuff that's going to have to come out as evidence. But yeah, very, very interesting. So what does that mean generally? Obviously, we're in a very fraught political time. A big question in this political time is the prospect of political prosecutions. Is this a political prosecution? My stance generally is the only idea, there's no such thing as a political prosecution, but there can be a political targeting of someone for prosecution. Is James Comey a political target for prosecution? Almost certainly here. Certainly Trump has made no bones about his dislike for James Comey, and vice versa. James Comey has made no bones about his dislike for Trump. In fact, he was in the scandal not long ago, a few months ago, where he tweeted out some seashells that he had found that were arranged in the numbers 8647, which he claims to not know what that means. He's the former director of the FBI, one of the top law enforcement investigative bodies in the entire world. So he's claiming ignorance as to the meaning of 86, which is to take out or to assassinate, to kill, however you want to interpret it. But basically, yeah, to take out. And 47 is Trump's presidential number. He's the 47th president of the United States. So 8647 is kill Trump. He tweets out a picture that says 8647, saying like, "Oh, look at these cute seashells." He claims it was a mistake. He didn't know what it means. We can give him the benefit of the doubt as to that. But regardless, though, his whole back and forth with Trump has just been, there's clear animus there. Yeah, and people, apparently this has been reported for some days now that this was incoming. You can certainly make the case, and I think it's a solid case, that, yeah, this is a political targeting for prosecution. Question is, first off, did he actually commit the crime? And like I said, this will be very easy to prove. Either he did or he did not. And assuming the goods are there, which I'm assuming they are, the grand jury looked at it. Granted, they only have an obligation to rule on probable cause and return the true bill based on that. It's a different question to convince a regular jury beyond a reasonable doubt. But with this kind of allegation, it's really a very simple, straightforward claim here. For them to return the true bill, I think, says a lot about the evidence that is at play here. But yeah, so with that in mind, and then it's a question too of like, okay, are we really, is this really fair in the sense that how many people would testify before Congress and say something that's misleading or false? How many times did Fauci testify before Congress and say things that were outright lies? And whether is he prosecutable for that? So that's kind of the main political analysis here is, right, was he politically targeted? I would, concede, yeah, probably, almost definitely. But then the question is it justified in the sense that Trump is someone who's been politically targeted for prosecutions and in fact was convicted on the worst of the four cases, the New York hush money case. Yeah, that was what he was convicted on, 34 felonies, and that was just a completely targeted political prosecution based on a novel legal theory that the gist of it was that by Trump signing checks to his lawyer that were labeled legal expenses and then recording those checks on his business books as legal expenses, that somehow was falsifying a business record. He was trying to conceal a crime that he committed, when the only action that was taken here was he hired his lawyer, paid his lawyer to negotiate a non-disclosure agreement, this hush money. But guess what? NDAs are completely legal. And guess who creates NDAs? Your lawyer. And guess what you give your lawyer to create NDAs? Money, aka legal expenses. So that was the entire basis for Trump's 34 felony convictions, yet that was pushed through and that was cheered on by the Democrats and by the left. So I'm sorry, but you break it, you bought it. If you want to make political prosecutions a mainstay in American life, y'all the ones that broke the seal. And turnabout is going to be fair play here. So that's kind of the basic gist, basic thoughts on it. Obviously, I'll have more thoughts as more information comes out. But yeah, I just really wanted to go through this quickly, to read it through with y'all, go through the statute, give some general overview thoughts. But yeah, that's all it's going to be for today's video. If you learned something new, then drop a like down below. And if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to come back for more. And most importantly, I want to see y'all down in the comments. That's my favorite thing to do, is respond to comments down below, get chatting with y'all. If you want to continue the conversation, you can follow me over on X at the Gen Z Attorney, or you can tune into my Sunday afternoon live streams. I'm live every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, talking about the news and events of the week. So would love to see y'all there. But until then, yeah, that's it for tonight. I'll see you all on the next one.